We're back.
We're back. It's Bruce Martin with
His brother Roger.
and our special guest today.
The two of us.
We are the special guests. We're the Inglorious Pastords, and we're still chugging along in season 6.
Even for some of you who wish we just stopped this.
And this is the first time we've ever gotten to an episode 10.
Is it 10?
This is 10. We're in double figures.
You allowed us to get...
I think it's time to start a new season.
Well, listen, at this point, you've let it go far longer than I thought you would. So,
and friends and listeners and viewers, it's a real special treat that I'm here today because I wasn't supposed to be here today. I was supposed to be climbing to the top of Mount Whitney this week, but 3 new fires in Sequoia National Park, which is very sad because it's even endangering the giant sequoia grove, the giant forest. Really? Yeah, they literally, they're like 20 foot of aluminum foil around the bottom of these trees to protect them from heat.
Really?
It's fascinating. And they're taking out all the vegetation around them. It's just, they're doing everything they can to protect. But it already reached what's called the 4, like the 4 guardsmen.
Okay.
Which are a grove of 4 sequoias right on the edge. The fire's already reached there. So.
Oh, wow.
So. Having to cancel a trip is a bummer, but losing or potentially damaging some of the oldest trees on the planet. So the General Sherman tree is the largest tree in the world.
Really?
In terms of volume. It's 275 feet tall, estimated to be around 2,700 years old.
Wow.
2,700 years old. So this tree predates Jesus in terms of its time here on Earth.
Okay.
Isn't that wild? It's just hard to wrap my head around 2007. That tree has seen a lot of history. I mean, and 275 feet tall. That's a big old tree.
It's a fur piece.
That's a fur piece. Well, I'm trying to give perspective on that. That's like a 30-story building.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It's a big old thing.
On that note, how tall is Whitney? And in terms of
my niece? She's like 5'3", I think, 5'4".
Do you call her Mount?
No, we just call her Whitney. It's just Whitney. Okay,
so Mount Whitney, and how does that compare to other U.S. peaks?
So it's the tallest peak in the continental United States.
Okay.
So 4,500, roughly 500 feet. It's fluctuating a little bit. You know, it moves a little bit. I think it's around 500, 14,505. So it's obviously the tallest 14er you can hike. But you have to go to Alaska before you have a U.S. mountain that's higher. Which I think is McKinley.
So have you climbed?
I've climbed it 6 times.
6 times.
Yeah. I'm hoping that gives me an in. I'm applying for my permits this week.
Okay.
I'm hoping that gives me an in with the National Park Service. I have climbed it 6 times. I know that trail extremely well. But yeah, it's called the High Sierra Trail. I always take people in from the west. So you have basically over 7 days you kind of summit the mountain and then come back down, and it's just a cool trip. Okay. Beautiful, but you start in the giant forest. So you start in these massive, up to 3,000-year-old trees.
Okay.
And hike from there, and then you're on granite and you cross the Great Western Divide, and it's just crazy.
So when you take groups on these Born to Be Wild trips, and it's fascinating, these overnight trips and so on. So everyone's carrying a pack.
Yeah.
What weight? What's the idea? What do you shoot for?
We're trying to limit it to, on a week-long trip, you're trying to limit it to 35 pounds.
Okay, 35 pounds.
Because more than that just gets really uncomfortable. That's a lot of weight.
Is that one of the biggest mistakes novice or even
yes, that the biggest mistake that novice hikers make or new hikers make is they're carrying 50 pounds, and 10 to 15 pounds of that they don't need. Like they're bringing the Hubble telescope, a weather radio, a portable generator, like wind-up generator for their. And I'm like, nope, you're not gonna. So you can see the stars just fine. No telescope needed. It's amazing.
I guess that would be funny. The most intriguing thing someone brought. I don't know you want to put anyone on the spot, but
no. But I have seen one of those giant hand saws that 2 people use
No.
that was 5 feet long that was strapped to the back of his pack.
No, you're making that up.
He literally thought we were going to take down a giant sequoia. I'm not making that up. That was one of the most. And another guy did bring a telescope. That did not get used.
What does that mean? He had to unload it at some point because he couldn't carry it.
He was so tired when he got into camp, he couldn't possibly get the thing out of his pack and set it up and all of that. And I'll say this: one of the first times I went hiking back in 2003, I had like 50 pounds of stuff. I had a weather radio. I had a light that was a wind-up generated light. So like, and you'd get some light for a little while. And I'm like, now that I look back, I'm like, they have batteries for that. You don't need a wind-up generator. And the other thing is, you're typically not out there that long. Now, right. a week-long trip, a Whitney trip is 9 or 10 days. So that's a long trip. So you're carrying about 10 pounds of food, which means you have to get everything else down to in that 25 pound zone.
So because you're carrying more food, you've got to be that much more.
You got to have ultralight tents, like 3 pounds or less on your tent, 2 pounds or less on your sleeping bag. Everything's got to be super light. And don't bring a bunch of clothes. You don't need a new outfit every day. It's not a fashion show. We say when we're hiking in the mountain and backpacking, it's like same shirt, different day.
Right.
So that's just you just wear the same shirt over again. Same
and
pants.
Trust me, it's saving your legs.
It is.
Over.
So on my week-long trips, I'll tell people bring maybe 2 outfits. When I say outfit, it always sounds like a girl. That's so funny to me. Do guys even wear outfits? I don't know.
You like my outfit today?
Yeah, I like your outfit.
It's
very nice.
A beautiful green, isn't
it?
Sort
of a beautiful chartreuse.
Yeah.
Makes me want to throw up green. But this is 2 pairs of clothing, whatever that is. So, because like on these long trips, you can wash them every evening when we're out in the Sierras and particularly and hang them out to dry. So it's just interesting. But, a lot of people, because we're so used to changing clothes every day, they feel compelled to have a different series of clothes every single day.
Just that cultural thing that our culture's used to. Many cultures probably very different.
All right. So here, what's the longest? How many days in a row have you worn the same shirt? This is the moment of truth.
Oh, it's probably happened. I would say 3, maybe 4.
3, maybe 4 days.
Yeah.
I've done it 3 days before.
Okay.
I find a shirt I like. Like over the weekend, I wore the same shirt all 3 days because I wasn't getting out. It was raining. I wasn't going anywhere. Right. But sometimes even in my office, I don't really like this. And I end up wearing it like 3 days.
No, it's funny. If you like the morning videos that I do, if you were to track back through those, you would find 2 or 3 days.
Same shirt a lot.
Same shirt or same
shirt, different day.
No, because I'm
the Pastords.
I often sleep in the same shirt and just get up the next day. I've got the same shirt.
So I can't say it's because I'm taking care of the planet and all of that, but I don't wash clothes a lot. Like shirts, I don't wash a lot. Jeans, I don't wash a lot. Now, underwear and socks, those get washed every usage. I get that. But like shirts, it might be 3, 4, 5 wears.
Oh gosh, yes.
Before it gets a washing. Right. Same thing with jeans.
Right.
Is this too much information?
Well, it's a bit of concern for my wife. She's not necessarily thrilled with that, but
okay, Marlena, if you're watching right now, I'm doing this for Roger's sake. I'm just sort of taking one for the team right now. I wash my shirts every day religiously. It's not true.
I was thinking about, though, what made me think of the backpacks.
Yep.
So I was reading in the Bible, like you do so often. You've taught me to do.
You were reading in the Bible?
I was reading the Bible.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. No, you memorized vast
Are you sure it wasn't
an
ESPN? I know you're a big sports guy.
The sports Bible.
Sports guy.
But I was looking at Galatians 6, bear each other's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. So I was reflecting, but the very first moment I thought about backpacks. I was thinking,
well, sure.
And one thing that I thought about was, well, I've talked to you. You've sometimes carried somebody else's pack before.
There's been multiple times where I've carried 2 packs. I mean, the probably the longest I did that was on a max patch trip. and we had a specific time that we had to be off the trail because we had these hot tub treatments coming at the natural hot springs. And I was looking at the time and I'm like, at this pace, we're not going to make it. So I said, here's what we're going to do. We were about 3 miles out from the parking area. I'm like, I'm going to carry your pack and my pack. And then I would take off and just hike 3 miles out to the park, drop those 2 packs, and then run back. By this point, 2 miles, because they've moved a little further as we're going, get 2 more packs. So that day I carried 4 packs, basically 5 miles. 3 miles that first 2-packer, and then came back, and then 2 packs for 2 miles. But we were a little late, but we did make our hot tub treatments. But yeah, every now and then I'll do like this summer we had to do some pack carrying for others because it was so hot.
Right.
Like on that August trip, we had 93 degrees and we're going uphill several thousand feet.
Right.
And so I would just at different times offer to, hey, let me take your pack and get it up this hill for you, because that's when people really feel the stress and strain of backpacking. When you're going uphill and you're carrying 30 pounds, 35 pounds, your body's going, I don't think so. And it's 90 something degrees. And even though it's a dry heat, absolutely true.
Right.
90 something is still hot. So a lot of times, I'll carry a top to the pack of a mountain, get it to the summit. But the trail keeps going after that, because then once it levels out or you're going downhill, it's much easier to carry it.
So sometimes then you're carrying 70 pounds.
Yeah. There was one time that I'm pretty sure I was carrying 85 because this person had packed so heavy. When I took the pack,
I just had to chuck that saw.
When I took the pack from this person, I remember my eyes went. I was like, "Holy cow! This is twice as heavy as my pack," because I keep the weight down. Yeah, that was an interesting trip. But I love doing that. Part of it's a little selfish in that it keeps me in great shape. Right. When you're going up these mountains with 2 packs, your legs are getting. Your cardio's in great shape. Your legs are in great shape. It's kind of fun.
Well, I do like a challenge. So I think just the part of can I pull this off? And that oh my gosh. But that, and I think I've also thought of moments where I think you've shared where different ones in the group may also team in and help.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Someone, I'll carry this, or I'll carry.
So we've had people that had major injuries, blew out a knee or something. So they can't carry a pack.
Okay.
So we would divide everything in their pack among the whole group, which is a beautiful thing. One time we had a girl that got super sick. We don't know if it was altitude sickness or a bug, but she literally, she went like 47 miles on Cheez-Its because that was like the only thing she could keep down. So we took all of her pack and everything in her pack and just divided that among everyone in the group. So, and there was 15 people on that. So 14 people are carrying one person's pack. So it's just a little bit of, extra weight for each person.
Right.
But it was beautiful because she was able to finish the whole week that way. And here's the thing. People were thrilled to do it. No one minded. It's an interesting thing about the backpacking world. It's like it creates its own community. It very much lives out that law of Christ thing, bearing one another's burdens. But it's not with an eye roll.
Yeah.
It's not, now we're having, it's kind of, but some of it might be the challenge of it, but I think some of it is at a core level, we're designed by God to help, to serve. I was reading Jesus yesterday. It was that passage we all know really well. It's told 2 different ways in the Gospels. One time it says that James and John come to Jesus asking for the seats on the right and the left. I'm in Matthew. So Matthew tells the story. It was actually mom
comes
with them. So it's them together. So it's true. The whole thing's true. The other gospels just don't talk about mom.
Right.
But his mom, she's like, hey, Jesus.
I got a proposition.
See the Sons of Thunder over here? I like that name, by the way. That's really cool. So much better than Sons of Zebedee.
Can we talk over here where the other boys can't hear? Just James
Think
and
about
John.
that. I wonder if they did get him. I wonder if she did take him a little aside. Anytime someone takes Jesus aside, it's never going to go well. But all that to say, he says that's not mine. He said they are going to be baptized with the baptism that I'm undergoing, but that's not mine to give. And then he just says again, this is over and over again. He said, "The greatest among you will be the servant of all." He said, "If you want to be great, become a servant. The greatest among you will become the slave of all." And it's this thing of both the metaphor of servant and slave. When I think of servant, you almost see a house servant, a person that's at least in better conditions.
Right.
But then when you hear the word slave, he uses two different words there. Mm-hmm. But the greatest among you will be the slave of all. I think he's referencing himself, where he literally serves the entire world in his death. All that I was just struck back with. This is what we're designed for. And it made me think about, I know this is probably not where you're going, but it's just been on my brain. Our world is still captured by who's the greatest. Everybody wants to be famous. Everybody wants to be known. Everybody wants to be the greatest or great or known as great. And here you see, that also apparently must be woven into humanity, because James and John suffered with that.
Oh, I do. Yes.
All of the disciples suffered with that malady of, we want to be great, or we want to be the greatest. And so Jesus over and over again says, the greatest among you.
Right.
We're called to serve. He said, even the Son of Man. Okay, this is God Almighty has come to earth not to be served. So it struck me, this is something we're missing. This is where, when I get sideways in my marriage, honestly, it's because I forget my job is to serve Marlena. Not to be served by Marlena. And I realize there's a certain joy in serving, not in greatness as the world describes it, not as in being known, and it's made me, and this is a whole nother conversation, but it's even made me wrestle with the idea of platform.
Sure.
Publishers, if you want to publish a book in traditional route, they want you to have a platform being the number of people that know you and can potentially buy your book.
Right.
And I get that. But then I'm like, but that it feels sometimes like it's becoming the pursuit of being known.
Right.
And I'm not saying I've resolved that in my heart yet. What is it that about we want to be known by people that don't even know us?
No, I think there's a thing that comes into play of made by God for community.
Yep.
We're made in a healthy way to be validated by others. I think we're to recognize that part of how we see ourselves is influenced by how others see us, and to have the affirmation of a parent, to have an affirmation of God, can be a very healthy thing. But all these healthy, beautiful things get twisted to where we're starting to find my significance is related to how many people think I'm awesome, or my significance is related to the size of my platform. How many people know me? How many people
know that I exist?
Like my work, love my teaching, want to buy my music,
like my dress on the red carpet.
Right. And in our culture, what's fascinating is in our culture, there's that many more ways now. It's just the whole thing with technology. You think about the average person today, but even through much of history, their life was their village. They're known, but we're interconnected with the whole world. So I can have a video that I do.
No wonder we have so much anxiety
that goes viral.
Right.
That goes, in other words, I can be known possibly by hundreds of thousands in days.
By millions, if it goes viral, by millions of people.
Exactly.
Isn't that
so
crazy?
In other words, so I look at, there's always been that's wanting to be
the discovery.
Great.
Yeah.
Wanting to be seen by others as important and again, where I'm even there, I'm bypassing, I've got to have validation that I'm important or significant somehow apart from, I was made in the image of God. Right. He designed me. He planned me. He said, I want Roger to be born.
I want Roger to exist.
And I love him and I care about him and he's precious and valuable, but there can be this clamoring. There can be this wrestling. I've got to keep getting that affirmation from other people. that I'm important, that I'm valuable, that I'm wanted. Again, a twist on a very healthy, good thing.
Yeah.
that invariably just kind of gets sideways. And so then we find ourselves clamoring for, striving for those affirmations, getting out there. And that's the tension that everyone is dealing with.
Yeah.
When does my search for platform, where does that get sideways? It doesn't have to be. We could even think about platform again, or just an opportunity of reach to speak good, to speak blessing, to be an encouragement.
Right. To be
nothing wrong with those kinds of things.
The
and it's certainly gratifying to learn that a number of people have been influenced by some word you've spoken or something.
And then it's back to service. See that if I'm serving others through this word of encouragement or this word of inspiration or even this word of rebuke or challenge, whatever, those are good things. Those are serving. Maybe that is where, in other words, that's where we are living out our purpose.
Right.
I've argued for years, our identity is in Christ. I'm created in the image of God. Right. I'm loved by God. I've been given design and purpose by God. In other words, there's tremendous important things God wants to do through my life, but they may impact one or two people in a profound way. But our world wants just pure volume. I get these emails every now and then in my spam folder that said, hey, we can get you like 20,000 emails or 20,000 new followers, in a week. And I'm like, I guess people do that.
Right.
These are people you don't know. They don't know you.
Right.
May not even be a real address or a real person. I mean, you could create, I guess, 20,000 fake social media accounts and sell them to a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Bob Roscoe. Put a couple of pictures out there. I'm just like, but all that, it just makes me think about, and it's interesting, that question from Mom and the two came on the heels of Jesus saying, because just Peter's like, hey, we've left everything to follow you. What then will be left for us? He says, I tell you, those who have left fields and family, houses, land, family, children, whatever, for my sake and the sake of the gospel, will receive 100-fold in this life, houses and land, and with them persecutions. And he said, and those that have followed me, and he's speaking right there to the 12, he said, you will sit on 12 thrones with me and rule in the next realm. And so I can see, the disciples thinking, thrones.
Ooh, sounds good.
Sounds good. We'll be judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And I was trying to think in their culture, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. This would be like Gideon, Joshua. And they're like, we're going to be. And so when the thrones thing came up, Mom was like, well, there's going to be two on either side of Jesus. I'd like for that to be my sons. And so she poses the question, and she's like, well, there's going to be space like that, but it's not mine to. So then I had to go through the whole, I wonder who that'll be.
Right.
I wonder, and I had this idea, it will be people that nobody knows of. They'll be on the right and left of Jesus.
Right.
Because they were great. They served. But no one knew.
Right.
I mean, or I should the people that were served may have known, but very few others.
What part of it is it'd probably be the people who were least concerned, the last ones thinking about those seats.
Right.
In fact, they're probably ones I'd rather not sit here.
Yeah.
In other words, they're not clamoring for. They're not even. No, I don't. I just want to be.
Yeah. Jesus even says when you go to a banquet, he said, "Don't take the seats of honor." He said, "Sit at the end of the table." He said, "It'd be far better." Someone goes, "Hey, Raj, come on up here, dude." And you're like, no. Yeah. But I think Jesus was just crazy. He just said things that are so countercultural, but it's so healthy.
Right.
I mean, it really is. I was telling someone yesterday, because, they had questions about what's gospel-centered counseling. I'm like, I just believe that everything Jesus said, taught, lived, modeled, everything is good news. And I said, and it leads to emotional health.
Yeah.
I said, even though it sounds crazy, but things like forgiving without condition, loving without condition, loving your enemies, serving people, whether they, quote, deserve it or not. All of these things are good for emotional health. When we're vying for our position and our place, or we're trying to make sure we get ours, or someone hurts us, we're trying to make sure that they get hurt. It's terrible for emotional health.
Right.
And I'm just like, Jesus was like the most amazing therapist ever.
Well, because you're getting at that thing.
He says, if someone does evil to you, here's what you referenced this in your talk last week. And don't just not do evil to them. Don't repay evil for evil. Tell you what, we're going to go to step 2. Do something good for them.
Bless them. Right.
Bless them. It's emotionally healthy.
Right.
But it sounds crazy to people.
This is the counterintuitive. And I have been thinking about this, like this counterintuitive idea that serving others, giving for others,
yes,
blessing others is always healthy for me. The message in our culture is you have got to get healthy and you've got to secure it. And so whether that's getting the affirmation of people, I want to be prominent. I've got to be, and we think this is going to make me happy, or this is going to make me satisfied, or this is going to, but it's always counterintuitive. This is why Jesus was saying the counterintuitive things, because it's the ones who are serving who are happiest. It's not the ones.
There you go. Say that again. That is so good.
Well, it's the ones that are serving that
are happiest.
The ones striving to be served are the least content.
Yeah.
This is where Jesus is saving us from ourselves. Even when he's saying,
yes,
don't try and be great. Again, this is because us thinking, we're believing the lie of greatness, that this will satisfy, this will fill that hole.
So in greatness, in so many ways, I was thinking yesterday in relation to all of this, even the passage says those that want to become rich.
Right.
In other words, this is a goal. I want to become rich. They're walking into this trap.
Yes.
And it gets worse and worse, because he said some of them even left the faith. And it's like, right, oh my gosh, this desire to get rich. And it's the desire for power, fame,
desire to get
wealth,
famous, desire to get right.
It's all woven under greatness.
Right.
Because when we think of in our culture, in American culture, I don't know about other cultures, I don't live there, but super wealthy people, whether that's, Bezos with Amazon or Richard Branson, whatever, they're considered great. Mm-hmm. But a lot of that is attached to they've got a ton of money.
Right. We make that connection. So if I'm coming back then to what you were saying, I mean, this is what I was thinking about with that bear each other's burdens. So this instruction, so this is a command to think about, okay, yep. Today I'm called to carry the burdens of others. I'm called to, it's one of the few, the law of Christ. It's the only time that phrase is even used. The law of, if there's it, this is a non-optional thing. So today I'm called to help carry people's burdens.
Yeah. And the law of Christ, I believe, was when he gave the single command on the night he was crucified, which was love others as I have loved you. As it's I've got a whole chapter just called the power of as. This is the command. This is the law of Christ. As I have loved you. Think about what Jesus said in relation to burdens. Come to me, all of you that are heavy burdened. Take my yoke upon you. I will give you rest. In other words, Jesus is going to carry this with them.
Yeah.
Love others as I have loved you. Are we intentional about carrying other burdens? Or do we sometimes just say, gosh, it sucks to be you. I'm glad I don't have to.
Well, a sobering part of that is the way the scripture in relation to Jesus uses the word carry. Surely he has borne our burdens and carried our sorrows. Man of sorrows. So Isaiah 53, and actually even carrying the weight, sin, shame, brokenness, pain. But for Jesus to say, because I agree with you, I think the law of Christ, we don't know because it's the only time the phrase is used, but I'm struck by Jesus saying, a new command I give you.
Right.
A new command. Is there any other time where it says a new command? It just fits the idea of law, and it's related to loving, not just loving your neighbors yourself.
Yeah, that's what I love about it.
Loving as I have loved you, because now you've experienced my love directly. Love others as I loved you. Well, Jesus was a burden carrier. He was so this word here, to carry each other's burdens as I have carried. But here's the thing that struck me was, well, multiple things, but one of them was, it's so funny what you said about when you had the gal who was sick and not doing well, and everyone kind of shared the burdens, and they loved it.
Yeah.
It's, the thought hit me, when we're helping carry others' burdens, our burden gets lighter. One way, and this is that healthy thing that Jesus, we're
crazy emotional health.
When we're not,
look at Roger giving his emotional health principles
on our burden as much.
Yeah.
That focusing on the burdens of others actually is a way of helping us with our burden.
A great illustration. There's a last year gentleman shared about the loss of his son. He lost his son to an overdose. His son had struggled with drugs for years. And right at Christmas time, literally like Christmas Day, they're calling. They can't get to him. They can't find him. He's off there. He's supposed to be at mom and dad's house. So they do a wellness check with the police. But he goes in. His son's overdosed and has died.
I cannot.
And I can't imagine the pain of that. But he's devoted himself now to working at His Way, which is a local rehab center. And his work is not so much with the kids in rehab. He's devoted himself to working with the parents and helping bear their burdens, because he knows that burden. He knows the pain of a child that's trapped by drugs and drug abuse and the whole disease of that, and how painful that is for the parent of a child. And he's able to walk with that, even if they haven't lost a child to that. He knows the pain of that.
Yeah.
But even as we're talking, I'm realizing that's part of how his burden has become lighter.
Yeah.
I only know his story because he shared it at the landing last Christmas.
Right.
We do a Blue Christmas thing every year, and he shared his story. In other words, some of us have had profound losses right at Christmas time. So Christmas is associated not with something, deck the halls with boughs of holly, but much more mourning.
Yeah.
And a reminder of loss and sorrow. But yeah, I realize he's still doing it. I got a call from him last week, and it was just beautiful. He's doing this for multiple other parents now. And so as you were telling that, I'm realizing he's happier. His burden is lighter. You don't ever fully recover in this life from the loss of a child.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But his burden is lighter because he's helping others carry theirs.
Yeah.
He's serving.
So I'd love to get your thought, because I was thinking about this. So then I had this image in my mind that struck me from your hiking when I was reading this passage, Galatians, carry each other's burdens. I had this vision of thinking of every person you meet is carrying a backpack.
Yep.
Every person is carrying a backpack. Everybody you make eye contact with today is carrying some burdens.
Some burden, yeah.
And so God is calling.
And they might be going uphill.
Oh, yeah. And they might be smiling. They may not even know how heavy the pack is. The pack may be, and it may be parts of it, maybe their own fault. They pack too much. They're whatever. I'm not trying to overthink the analogy, but the analogy is.
But that's a great point. The temptation is, well, you packed it, you can carry it.
Right. That's right.
That's your own mistake.
You got into
You got into problems and you made bad decisions.
Right. I told you not to, so I'm off the hook now with helping carry that burden. No, I feel
terribly convicted. Well,
what's interesting is, what's the context of Galatians 6:2, that
sin.
Instruction? Well, the verse 1 is,
someone caught
a brother has gotten trapped.
Yep. By sin.
Yeah. And so instead of me looking,
it is counterintuitive to run to that person and go, how can I help?
Right. How can
the temptation is go, well, sucks to be you, but you're sort of getting what you deserve.
Right.
You screwed up.
Well, I'm not going to enable you by helping carry your burden. You carry the thing yourself.
You might do it over and over again.
So you tell me. So this is what I'd love to. What is that? I'm thinking about practical. What does it look like to help carry people's burdens? I mean, in other words, if someone's just simply thinking, how do I live that out? What can I do to help carry people's burdens?
So this is going to seem trivial, but it takes time and emotional energy. Listen to people. Listen to the worst parts of their story. Listen to the hardest parts of their story. There is something healing about, and I don't know how it works out, but there's something healing about a person telling another human being about the worst thing they've ever done or the worst thing that's ever happened to them. There's been times that I've talked to you about, the worst things I've ever done. But I realize even in that process, even in that, with a safe person like you, there's a healing that happens for me in that.
Yeah.
And so I think part of it, one component of that is listening to people, because I can find myself, if they're talking about their troubles or their difficulties, I can find myself checking out or wanting to, let's move on. This is awfully negative. Let's move on to another thing. I'm not talking about my counseling. I'm just talking about in normal life stuff.
Right.
But it's important to listen to people and hear them.
Well, and it's funny because sometimes someone's talking to you and they feel like, they say, I feel like I'm dumping on you. I feel like but they are. That's exactly, in other words, sharing is unloading a burden. So listening, this is what we are. When we're listening,
yeah,
we're letting that person take some things out of the backpack and put it in ours.
Can you carry this? This with me?
Can you carry this with and that same passage, they still have their pack.
Yep.
There's still a burden they have to carry.
Everyone still has their own.
Everyone still has their own load to carry, but we were meant to carry them together. And listening, I mean, is so. We feel like the best thing to do. We're inclined to think the best thing we do is have the right thing to say. I need to.
Yeah.
But I think leading with listen. If I'm talking about helping people carry their burdens, I think there's a place for speaking at points.
Sure.
But I say lead with listening. One of the best things we can say is, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to? And I'm curious, even from your count, what are healthy or ways to help encourage people to talk when maybe they're hesitant? I'm not talking about some kind of trick or formula.
No. There's a lot of great words you can use. Ask curious questions versus accusing questions. So, gosh, how did that happen? A very inviting thing to say to anyone is, hey, tell me more.
Okay.
In other words, what they're saying, they might be testing the waters, and I feel like I'm burdening. Think about that. I feel like I'm burdening you. No. Tell me more.
I love what you just said with testing. So they're just tease out a little to see what's too much. Am I crossing a line? Because so often, it's just heartbreaking me where I think about.
Roger's getting a phone call. I won't say who it is. He doesn't know how to make it stop. Don't become your parents. How do you turn this thing off? There's a little button. It's a silent button. It's in the upper left.
Well, what was funny is I turned my sound off
and it came through your
on
computer.
My phone, but it's coming through. The sound was coming.
Roger's so technologically advanced. His computer and his phone, they're linked. He doesn't even know how. But you were saying something about burdening. Unburdening when got the call.
Well, what was I saying?
I don't know. It was really good.
I thought it was good in the moment. I think you were talking about the idea of listening and people
feel like they're burdening you.
Yes. So one of those tragic things where you feel people feel the way that I feel like I'm a burden. I still remember when our granddad, Martin, had cancer. We were getting ready to go out to eat, and he just didn't want to go. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to. And oh my goodness, I mean, I just remember the weight and the pain of that. But I think about how many people, they test the waters. But where you say, I want to know more. I want to hear more.
Another way you can carry weight or at least reduce weight for others, I realize this, is tell them the truth about their story. Some of the more powerful things I'm able to do, even in counseling, when I listen to people's stories and the hard parts of people's stories, is to say, hey, that wasn't your fault. You're not responsible for that. You don't need to carry shame about that. You don't need to carry, and just to see, in that moment, I can see God's allowing me to take some weight off of them. In fact, it's not even weight that they should be carrying, but often attached to certain things, there's a certain shame that a person carries. And for me to say, hey, that's not your fault. That you didn't cause that. That's not a weight that you need to carry. And then even with people's own sin, to say, hey, you don't need to carry that anymore. In other words, if I continue to carry the burden of shame and regret and all that, in one sense, I'm nullifying what Christ did on the cross. I don't want to do that. And so I tell people, and part of my role is to help people understand, hey, you need to forgive yourself. You need to unburden. You need to let that, you need to lay that burden down, literally, the Need to Breathe song.
Yes.
Take your burdens, come lay them down. Well, a lot of that is just recognizing Jesus died for that sin. So I don't need to carry it anymore.
Right.
I can acknowledge it, confess that, and then I can lay that down.
Yeah.
Jesus has got that. But that's another way to unburden people, giving them permission to forgive themselves, giving them permission to forgive someone else.
Well, even I think that just the power of speaking forgiveness over people.
Oh yeah.
You were forgiven. Where
that's a burden bearing thing.
Something even where we haven't unpacked just that whole kind of odd, the kind of thing Jesus saying to Peter, whatever you loose in heaven, but I've seen just the power of to be able to tell somebody you're forgiven.
I've been wrestling with that particular passage for the past 3 weeks.
You're covered.
You're covered.
In other words, I can speak on behalf of Jesus. Somehow Jesus through me can speak. You're forgiven. It's not audacious. It's not me. I am an instrument of speaking forgiveness, speaking wholeness. How often we need that from other people?
Well, but I'm back to yes. I'm back to that. So that thing where Jesus talks about loosing and binding, whatever you loose on earth, be loosed in heaven. Whatever you bind on earth, be bound in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't just say that once. It's not an aside. Okay, within 5 chapters in Matthew, he says it again. So the first time is in Matthew 16 or 18, wherever, Peter says, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. Matthew 16, 18, one of those.
Yeah.
It's in the teens.
I think it's 16. Yeah.
And then Jesus says, I'll give you the keys to the kingdom and whatever and then within 4 chapters, he says it again. And it does in that context, if I remember correctly, it's in the context of forgiveness. So there's something about we're freeing someone.
Yes.
We're loosing someone in this. And maybe in one sense, we're binding the evil one who wants to, because his great work is shame and deception. And this is all your fault. And you're a bad person.
Because that's his primary weapon is deceit and deceit to chain you.
Maybe we join God in this great redemptive work when we forgive people, loose them,
right?
And at the same time, we're binding the strong man.
Yeah,
you can't. In other words, it's not like abracadabra, hocus pocus. I bind thee in the. Okay, it's much more. John 20:23. It's the Holy Spirit. He breathes on them. This is post-resurrection. He breathes on the disciples. He says, receive the Holy Spirit. And he said, if you forgive anyone their sins, they are forgiven. If you don't forgive them, they're not forgiven. And it's this thing of aphiemi, to release or send forth. They're unburdened. I think for the average first century Jew, it elicited the memories of, hey, in villages and towns where there was a priest, once a year, he would ceremonially take the sins of the people, lay it on a scapegoat, release it, send it forth into the wilderness. All that to say, I'm wondering now if we have more power, the keys to the kingdom, we have more power than we think. This burden-bearing thing may run far deeper than I thought. The power of releasing people.
Yeah.
And binding the enemy from continuing that work in their life. Well, the Pastords have stumbled on something.
Well,
because I've been wrestling with that passage for weeks.
Right. It speaks to, I think words have greater power than we believe.
Jesus says out loud, verbally, when he's being nailed to the cross, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Right. I mean, he's speaking forgiveness.
Letting go, loosing. Speaking. So there's a huge power to that with people. The burdens that they're carrying, that our words or speaking God's words over them So it's not too strong. Even when you look at that phraseology, speak as if you're speaking the very words
of God.
Or where Paul would say, I beseech you on behalf of Christ, be reconciled. God is speaking to you through me. It's not too audacious to say God frees and blesses and forgives through us.
And on the other hand, let's make sure we don't burden people with our words. I mean, it's that whole thing of Ephesians 4 where it talks about don't let anything unwholesome come out of your mouth, but only that which will benefit the listener, not burden the listener. And I realize even in my marriage or in other relationships, there's all sorts of things I could say, but I'm realizing that's not going to benefit the listener. And I sometimes even wonder, why would I want to say that? Because it might be hurtful or it might be whatever. I'm like, but it would just be burdening. We're called to be burden bearers,
right?
Not burden givers. Here, let me put 50 pounds on you, Raj.
But and wasn't that Jesus' indictment of the religious leaders?
You burden them. You won't even lift a finger.
You lay
heavy burdens.
Right. You lay heavy burdens, but you're not burden bearers. You
know what the Greek
word
there
have no
means?
interest in bearing their burden.
It means heavy burdens. That's just a guess. I haven't actually looked that one up. But he said, you won't lift a finger. And I talked to another person about this last week. You have hindered those who were seeking entrance into the kingdom while you yourself have not entered.
Yeah.
Putting all of these burdens. So conversely, we should be unburdening people. We should be bearing burdens with people, but not adding to their burden in the sense of not blessing them. It doesn't mean we shouldn't share, because we're supposed to.
Right.
If I have trial, struggle, I can share.
Right. And again, doesn't mean I don't ever share a hard thing or whatever.
No.
But but that's a really one.
But I don't add to their hardship.
There's a beautiful image. If I'm thinking of every person I meet today, we're all carrying a pack.
Yep.
I can add to that person's burden.
Think about
Or I could help, because I love the analogy I'm just going to take part of. Can I carry this part for you? You're still going to have to carry that, but I'm going to.
So if we get in that situation, I'm just thinking of real tangible situations. We've all had that situation in a service industry moment. The person who's serving us is clearly having a bad day. Right. They're just, let's say it's a restaurant, but you can tell they're having a bad day.
Right.
We're completely tempted in that moment to repay evil for evil.
To add their burden.
To add to their burden.
Yeah.
And instead, we are called to unburden them. Hey, thank you so much for helping with this.
Right. Here's $20.
Here's $20.
Right.
That was the worst service I've ever had. And we want to bless you for that. You don't speak that. But I can't even remember what I shared last week. Did I tell you about the guy? I had to apologize to guys.
You did.
Irritable
you did. You did actually talk about that. Yeah.
It freaked him out. But I realized I may have unburdened him in a way.
Oh, absolutely.
That I hadn't even thought about.
No.
Because by being irritable, I added to their burden.
No.
And I felt tension, the weight of that.
No, exactly. Tension.
Yep.
Tension is a weight. When you did that, absolutely. It's a classic example.
Isn't that interesting?
When you apologize.
Yes.
You apologize for being rude, being angry, me saying something in a moment of anger to joy or whatever. When I apologize, that's another way. Just think about ways. I think that's a fascinating. What are ways we can
don't burden, benefit?
I was just hoping you weren't going to come up with something.
Don't burden others, bless others. Don't burden others, benefit others. I'm working on t-shirts right now. It's the Inglorious Pastords t-shirts. You can't get them yet, but when you can, we're going to have some good things.
I've got one
on them.
Bless, don't stress. Bless them, don't stress them.
That's actually very good because it rhymes.
Right.
And it doesn't have two B's.
Well, it's just hard to come up with a word that rhymes with burden.
Bless.
Burden it.
Bluster. I think this could be one of the best Inglorious Pastords episodes yet, because I had this epiphany in the middle of it. Anytime I have this moment in the middle of it. You
like the epiphanies.
I do like epiphanies. This whole thing of the keys to the kingdom are, we can lock people up or we can loose them. Man, that's going to change my whole day today.
Of course, you like laughter too, and we didn't laugh quite as much today.
I am going to unlock some people today. we are going to be blessing right and left. So thanks for joining us on the Inglorious Pastords. We know we've gone over, but we're so excited that neither computer seems to have messed up today. We're like, let's tell them everything we know. So we'll see you next week as Batman says to Robin, oh no, it's the chuckler.
Be blessed, not stressed.
All right, you're just gonna stay with that, aren't you?
I like it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I'm not gonna lie.